Well, hello to our audience. This is Luke Brett from Reuters Events. Today, I am joined by Brian Higgins, Director of Advanced Technologies at Babcock and Wilcox. And today we're discussing hydrogen, a real buzz topic. Brian, welcome to the interview.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, for our audience who may not be aware, who are Babcock and Wilcox and what is your role in the hydrogen economy?
Yeah, sure. So Babcock and Wilcox, or B&W, is a relatively old company in America, and we've spent the large part of that building and installing throughout the world steam generators. So this is to make steam for power generally, and historically it's been fossil fuel fired. And so obviously we're in an energy transition, and this is all moving towards different renewable type energy sources. We do a lot of work in waste to energy, municipal solid waste to produce power. And of course, we're interested in getting into hydrogen.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good overview. And what do you see the role of clean hydrogen playing in power generation in industry as the world looks to achieve those UN climate agreements by 2050?
Yeah, so hydrogen, why hydrogen? It's, of course, it's all about decarbonization, and it's a fuel that doesn't increase the CO2 in the atmosphere, but that depends on how you make it. If you make it from electrolysis with renewable power, it's green, that's fine. You can also make it with fossil fuels, so long as you capture the CO2 from the production, from the chemical processing of the fossil fuel, right? And so we're very interested in that part of it. We've got a number of carbon capture technologies that we can combine with the production of hydrogen, but it's even better if instead of using a fossil fuel, you can use a waste fuel, whether it's a municipal type waste or a wood type waste from maybe lumbering or forest debris or agricultural debris, and then produce hydrogen as a decarbonized fuel, capture the CO2 and sequester it. And so then it becomes truly carbon negative and on par with like direct air capture. And so this becomes really a good route to decarbonizing. So we have some technologies to do this. The bright loop is how we brand it. It's a chemical looping process that allows a fuel, whether it's a waste product or a fossil fuel, to interact with an oxygen carrying metal particle. And so this produces a stream of CO2 that's separated from the production of hydrogen. So you react this metal particle with the fuel in a separate vessel than where you react it with steam, and it creates hydrogen from the steam. So it's called chemical looping because this particle goes in a loop as it goes around, and it's really an innovative new way to make hydrogen with a very inexpensive carbon capture built into it.
Now, this is really interesting and very innovative. How does can you give us some more details actually on this solution, and also how does this work and make B&W's solution unique, as there are a lot of technologies emerging in the space right now?
Yeah, so it starts with our history of burning fuels to create steam, right? So we're very comfortable in this high temperature environment, and we've for almost 20 years now we've been working with the Ohio State University, which is quite near our global headquarters in Ohio, and they have developed this chemical looping process, right? Like I said, it allows the reaction of the oxygen in this metal particle with the fuel separate from the reaction of steam with the particle to make hydrogen. The key part of this, where we really think it's a game changer, is that it works with a real variety of different fuels. So it works with solid fuels and waste fuels, and we've been able to demonstrate that. And so so making hydrogen from natural gas maybe isn't that difficult. Decarbonizing it can be a struggle because the carbon capture requires a lot of heat, and that requires burning more hydrocarbons, and it kind of keeps going on itself. But where we see our technology really shining is to be able to use a waste product, create the hydrogen independent of the CO2, and in our work on this, so we've not built a full system yet, right? It's a developing technology, but we've done a lot of testing, a lot of pilot scale work. And so we see a very high energy efficiency. About 80% of the energy content in the waste product turns into hydrogen on an energy basis. So it's quite efficient that way.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, that is what's the challenge as well with these hydrogen technologies, that efficiency, and there's more being spoke about than ever before. Almost, it feels like, about energy efficiency as demand is just soaring, particularly post-pandemic levels. You're talking about the production side of things there. I wanted to also look at those near-term applications for this technology. So, what industries do you see will benefit the most from implementing these solutions, and give us an idea of how that would look?
Yeah, for sure. So, the obvious one I think that everybody sees right away is transportation, right? So you make hydrogen, you compress it. It's a great addition to electric vehicles, especially for trucking, where the batteries maybe for electric vehicles would be too heavy. So this becomes a decarbonization method for transportation. But what we also see a lot of application in industrial steam. So many industrial processes, like food processing, use an enormous amount of steam, and it's not so easy to decarbonize that. But if you can use hydrogen and convert an existing boiler from natural gas to burn hydrogen, then it becomes a great mechanism for decarbonizing industrial processes. And then what I always like to say is hydrogen is really the ultimate energy storage. It's the ultimate battery, if you will. If you have intermittency with renewable power, wind and solar, and you make hydrogen from that, you can use that you can make electricity back from that, and that becomes your best long-term battery. So, so those three industries, I think, are going to really benefit by abundant low carbon hydrogen being available.
No, absolutely, and no easy feat decarbonizing these industries. So then that kind of dives into those projects. So are you actively developing projects, pursuing projects, and obviously location is a really important factor. I know B&W are active everywhere. So where is the second question to that?
Yeah, so we find in the hydrogen space that there's three geographical areas that are really interesting to us, and interesting for different reasons. And so first off, we have in California, where I live, there's a low carbon fuel standard. So for transportation fuels, all transportation fuels in the state are analyzed through a pathway analysis for their carbon intensity. And if you can sell a transportation fuel with a low carbon intensity into the state of California, it can be made anywhere. It just has to be used in the state of California. You can generate credits that are quite valuable. And so we find a lot of projects are being developed around that for hydrogen in California, LCSF. We're also finding that in the P2X world, synthetic fuels in Northern Europe, there's just really a lot of attention being paid to producing hydrogen, and then from that as a building block to produce fuels for the shipping industry, for aviation, and just general petrochemical uses, right? One of the interesting parts of that is the sourcing CO2 that's biogenic is difficult. And that goes back to our bright loop process, where if we use a wood or a waste fuel, we produce a stream of hydrogen and CO2, and that CO2 can be a very good building block for e-fuels. So we're finding that to be an active market. And then places where there are incentives, and interestingly, Canada has a really good carbon capture and sequestration incentive program, and it's not a trading program, so you have very predictable carbon pricing out for a decade, and that allows projects to be more easily financed, right? And so those sorts of Canadian projects for hydrogen are taking a fossil fuel, including the carbon capture with it, and then making hydrogen from that. So it's a low carbon intensity hydrogen that's incentivized by the Canadian government.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that one, but that's a good incentive actually. And there's all sorts of new incentive schemes being adopted across the world to help drive this energy transition. So certainly want to look a bit further into. So Brian, obviously coming to wrap up the interview, actually, could you give us some final thoughts from the audience, particularly on the work that B&W are doing in this space?
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for the opportunity to talk with you. It's a pleasure. I really feel like there is this energy transition that's happening. I've been in the power space for a long time, and this isn't the first time we've talked about hydrogen, right? It comes up every 10 years probably, but this time it feels real, and I would like to point to the reason is that there are real incentives, and there's been real action by government authorities to provide these incentives, and that's driving investment. And I think you're going to see the effect of it, and we're going to, there will be an energy transition of a sort for sure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Brian, and thank you to our audience for tuning in.